Alrighty, so welcome to my Any% New Game Plus tutorial for Pipistrello and the Cursed Yoyo. This video is taking a bit of time to make as the route has been constantly changing, but it's finally at a point where I feel like it's solidified enough for me to be able to make something like this. So the point of this video is we're going to go over the tricks, the route, and the various things you're going to do during the speedrun, as well as I'm going to try and provide alternatives depending on certain tricks that we're going to do and certain strats, so that if you aren't too comfortable with certain things, there are other alternatives you can try instead. So we'll just get into it. Before this begins, you will actually need a file that is 100% complete. If you do not have your own, I will link the speedrun.com page where I have a copy of my own save file that you can use so you can quickly get into doing the actual runs itself. Though it is obviously recommended that you actually do a full playthrough with 100% yourself, just so you get a full grasp of the game and everything that you'll need, because the stuff we're going to dive into is going to be a little bit extra. So the timing for the category will begin upon choosing the new game and confirming here. So the timing will start when you choose start, and so with this we will have all the yo-yo abilities, all the previous badges, so in this case it'll use whatever file has the most percentage, so in my case it'll use my 100% save, and then upgrades can be obtained out of order, which we will cover once we start getting them. So again, the timing will begin when we choose start, and we will get into it. So the very first thing we're going to do is we're going to utilize a thing that's exclusive to New Game Plus, and that is when you enter the Pipistrello Manor in New Game Plus, you actually have the ability to change your equipment right here. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to equip the Cheater's Teleportation Badge, and then we're going to move over to the moves, and for the charge move, we're going to set it to Flurry Attack, and for special move, we're going to set it to Parry. Now that you have those equipped, you're going to want to approach the door frame, and you're going to want to throw the yo-yo with the off-string throw, and then teleport to it. If you're close enough to the screen, you will actually you will warp into the loading zone, and you can actually exit the tutorial this way. If you do it from far enough away, it actually will not function. So if I do it from here and teleport, it'll push me back in. And we don't really know exactly why that's the case, but the assumption is that the yo-yo is bouncing in such a way where you end up in the trigger, like the trigger area for the event, or like pushing you forward before it actually lands in the loading zone. So being closer to the door frame means that you are more likely to end up in the loading zone instead of the trigger for the you can't leave text box. So once you're out, you will use the Now that you're out, you will initiate the walk the dog until you hit this cutscene trigger. Then from here, there are a couple different things you can do, and I'm actually going to enable developer mode so I can mess with some stuff, and we'll see some implications of that later. So a couple different things you can do here is once you've gotten past that cutscene, you can throw the yo-yo with the off-string throw and then teleport to it, or you can just walk to the screen transition. From here, we're going to do the first big trick, and that's called a zip. And to do a zip, we're going to use the UFO throw. So in my case, it's R1, and we're going to press the circle button to throw the yo-yo. Normally used to get an extra jump or to clear gaps, but instead if we use the UFO throw off screen, it'll send us flying when we try to grab the UFO. So this is what that'll look like. And then notice I skipped several screens doing this. There is a different amount that you can skip based on the zip you get. So if you're closer to the screen, so in this case, Pipit's entire shadow is off screen. If I do a zip from here, I get a slightly different. So that one, it went a little bit further. A lot of the zips are going to be like that. They're going to be very dependent on how far into the loading zone you are or are not. Ideally, you want to be closer to the loading zone so you end up on this screen, and once you land in this screen, you're going to initiate the walk the dog and just go straight forward, and we're going to bounce into this statue here because behind the statue is a money bag. Now we got $100, and we're going to immediately use it to unlock the taxi station here, and now we're going to go over to the right, and we're going to enter the neighborhood for the convention. Now ignore the fact that the ticket is here because I enabled developer mode. We're going to see some stuff like that. Now here's where we're going to use the Cheater's Teleportation Badge to skip the entire side quest of actually obtaining the ticket to the convention. So to do that, you will just use the off-string throw to throw it into this loading zone, and then teleport to it, and then just walk down. Now we're in the actual convention itself. From here, we can just go all the way up. And then in here, there's a couple different options you have depending on what you want to do. The fastest route is to actually just zip from here. So here you'll want to make sure Pipit's head is still on screen for this zip. This is so that when you zip, you end up right here. If Pipit's head is like in the loading zone, like it's off screen, you will zip one screen further and you will fall and void out. So this is like, and I will see if I can showcase that. So if I get like my head off screen and zip, then this happens and I void out. So you want to make sure when you do this zip that his head is still on the screen so you don't go as far. The other thing you can do if you don't feel comfortable doing a zip or you feel like you might mess it up is you can actually walk up to the stage here, and then this bodyguard here, if you throw the UFO and then teleport it past him and then stay close to the mega battery and then throw another yo-yo and then teleport to it, you can get up here this way. This is just to skip the zip. It is slower, but if you feel like you may just get thrown off and you don't want to like risk it, you can theoretically do that route instead. So now that we're actually up here, we're going to actually go into the safe house and we're going to change up our badges. So what we're going to do is open and then change the cheater's teleportation badge into the demon badge. And the demon badge greatly increases attack power, but maximum health is capped at 2. So this will drastically increase our damage. So if I go over to this screen, our attack stat is 10 instead of 5. So now when we leave, what we're going to do is we're going to jump out, and then immediately once you jump out of the safe house, just initiate walk the dog and go straight into the cutscene. Now once the fight here has actually begun, the first thing that's going to happen is Lincoln is going to start going for the little hook at the bottom left. We're going to want to intercept him by immediately charging a flurry attack and flurry attacking him as he's going to the hook. And then once he's jumped off, we're going to wait and we're going to intercept his sword attack just like that. And from this point, what we are doing is we are going to try and stay a certain distance away from him to avoid him jumping, because if you get too close before he does an attack, he will jump away. So really what you want to do is you want to stay close enough to him to where you can get a flurry attack in, but not too far to where you can't really like get up to him, but also not close enough to where he will jump around. After we finish that first phase, Toxie is going to come out and provide him with the shield, and for the first phase that she's here, it only takes a single hit to knock her away. So now you need to knock her away so you can go back to damaging him. In the second phase, he does drop 2 roses, so you can get some health up if you need it. But we're basically just going back to trying to attack him anytime we can get a chance. If he does the sword attack, if you attack him with his sword out, he will knock the head of the yo-yo away, which will waste a bunch of time. But you're basically just trying to stay close enough to him to where you can get a flurry attack in, but also not far enough away, or not too close, that you'll cause him to jump a bunch. The bombs that he throws out can damage him as well, so depending on how he wants to jump, he can be damaged by his own bombs. Now here in the third phase, Toxie will come out, but this time will take 3 hits. So instead what we're going to do is we're going to immediately do a charged flurry attack and try to intercept her before she actually gives him invulnerability. And that way he is completely vulnerable and we can go back to attacking him. And there we go. It's a pretty simple fight. It is one of the ones that gets very annoying very quickly because of how often he likes to jump around, and it's very easy to get trolled through the whole fight. But now that we have this fight down, we will want to break open the Mega Battery and obtain our first, well, Mega Battery. Now that we have the Mega Battery, when we leave, we will actually unlock one of our cousins. This is because she's actually tied to the cutscene we see after getting this Mega Battery, and even though we've not encountered her in the overworld, she will appear here because she's supposed to be here for this cutscene. So it's sort of like a failsafe to ensure the cutscene can be played correctly, is by just giving us her, essentially. So now what we're going to do is we're actually going to talk to her. We're going to choose to get an upgrade. And we're going to choose the Jumbo Breakfast upgrade, the +1 attack, but the -1 health. We're going to enter the contract for this, and then you're going to pause and unequip the Demon Badge and equip the Cheater's Train Badge. This will increase our movement speed dramatically that we'll be using for overworld movement. Once you're out of the safe house, you're going to want to hug this wall, and you're going to want to do a zip from this corner here. This is just so when you zip, you end up closer to these steps off the stage. And then from here, you're going to want to zip from this part of the grass, this left part, and this is because when you zip from here, we'll end up in the loading zone. When you do this zip, you'll want to hold up because it's actually going to try and zip you into the void. If you hold up, Pipit will just jump back into like inbounds. And then just holding up will get you through the load zone. From here, we get kicked out because we don't have the ticket, so it's very convenient for us. And so now we're going to move on to the next section. What we're going to do here is go to the top of the street here, and you do this. We're going to do is what's called a short zip, where we're going to use the same UFO throw, but we're going to walk away from it a bit and grab it from a distance. What this does is it ensures that we only travel one screen at a time. So if I were to go and do this again, but I were to do it with not a short zip, this is what happens. We get some wacky results like that. So doing that short zip ensures that we only go one screen at a time, and it usually will throw us in this corner, which is what we want because we want to immediately just go right up here. You want to hug the top of the screen so we can trigger this cutscene and then go straight into the stadium. Once in here, we're going to talk to this guy and then immediately leave. Now we need to recruit five fans to our fan club, and we're going to make use of the fact that they actually pay us to join our fan club to pay off that contract we took out. So here we're going to interact with this individual, and then we're going to immediately go to this screen. Go to the middle of the street here, and you're going to want to have Pipit's nose off screen. As I mentioned earlier, the zips you get can vary depending on if Pipit is on screen or off screen. In this case, for vertical, like if we're going left or right, we want to pay attention to if Pipit's nose is on screen or not. In this case, we want his nose to be off screen, and if we do a zip from here, if his nose is off screen, if we do a zip from here, we will end up on this screen. Now from here, we can just go left and we rescue a fan. Now we want to do a zip from here. This one, it doesn't really matter if his head is on screen or off screen. You will still end up in the desired location. It's just depending on if his head is off screen, it may like fumble you around a little bit. But if we do it where his head is on screen, we will land up here. You'll want to talk to this fan as well as collect all these money bags. Now for this one, we're going to want to hug this bottom wall. You're going to want to make sure you hug that, and then you don't want Pipit's nose off screen. So here we want his nose to still be on screen, and then we do a zip from here. And that'll land us right here. The reason we're doing it this way is because we need to zip past a screen that has a safe house. That way we can retain the safe house that's in front of the stadium. The way that the pause and return to safe house function works is it will either take the safe house that you're nearest by, if you're on a screen that has one, or the safe house on the last screen you were on that had one. So in this case, we're trying to preserve the safe house on just outside the stadium as the last safe house we were at. So now that we're here, we can do a zip from here, and it doesn't matter if his nose is on screen or off screen for this zip. And we end up over here. Now we're going to off-string throw from here and just wait for it to hit the switch. And we can talk to this fan. Now there are two options you can do for this one, though it's faster to go. It's going to be faster to go down. There is a fan through the sewer system here, but it is slower to take that one. We're going to go down instead. And here we can do an off-string throw and hit this switch just after the wind, and it'll hit that switch, letting us past, and we can talk to the final fan. Now here we have 5 of the 10 fans, which is all we need to enter the stadium, as well as our contract is paid off. So we're going to choose return to safe house and return. So now we need to actually talk to them to get the upgrade off. And now that we have this upgrade paid for, we're actually just going to pause and change the train badge back to the cheater's teleportation badge. And then we're going to leave. Now we can actually enter the stadium proper, and once this cutscene ends, you're just going to do an off-string throw and teleport to the yo-yo. Once here, we're going to talk to this guy, and we're going to place a $1,000 bet on ourselves, and then off-string throw again, so we can end up here. Now, this is one of the more finicky zips that we're going to do. For this one, we're going to want to have his head on screen, and we're going to zip in this corner, and it'll put us in this room. Immediately once you hear that Pipit bonks on the wall, you're going to want to initiate the wall ride. For me, that is circle. That way you can actually grab onto the wall, and then we're going to press this switch. And then from here, you can do you can jump to this wall to my left and do a wall ride to get up here, to get to this spot. Or what you can do, and I'm just going to use a function for developer mode, is you can throw the off-string throw, teleport to the yo-yo, and then wall ride from the teleportation, and you can end up here. Now, once we have here, there's two options you can do for this as well. You can do a zip to skip some of this section, or we can just wall ride again. So I'll show the wall ride. We're just going to go here, jump to here, and then we end up in this spot. But if you want to do the zip instead, which will zip us to this spot right here, so it skips a little bit of the platforming, instead what you'll do is you'll go through this screen, stand in the middle of these two tiles, and then just zip. And then wall ride once you hear the bonk. And that'll get you right here. It is slightly faster to do it that way if you can get the zip going quickly. If you are a type of person that you feel like you have to set up zips very carefully, it might not be worth it to take that. Now that we're here, we'll wall right here and just activate this last switch. So now I'm just going to get rid of this guy out of my way. So now we can just wall ride back and here. We can just wall ride along here to get to this screen. So once you're over here, what we're going to do is, if for the safety's sake, so in my case I only have 1 HP, and I want to make sure that I respawn if I end up dying through this trick, so I'm going to change the screen here and then just walk back. Now we're going to do what's called a transition warp. We are going to throw the UFO, or we're going to throw off string, and we're going to teleport to the yo-yo just as we screen transition. And what that'll do is it'll offset the transition and the teleportation, and it'll apply the coordinates that we are trying to warp to the yo-yo onto the new screen. So if I do it correctly here, I'm going to throw from this corner, so you'll want to do it until you can see that the yo-yo is going to get thrown just below me. And then if I were to hit that, and it's very close, you only get 1 frame to do it. So it's very tricky. In this case, because I did that screen transition, I end up spawning here. And there we go. So screen transitioning and pressing the R1 in my case to warp to the yo-yo will offset where we get teleported to, and it tries to apply those coordinates here, which just so happens to put us right here. What this does is it skips a forced encounter just above us. If you don't feel confident in doing that zip or the transition warp, you can come over here and do this encounter instead. It is against a very annoying enemy, but is very doable, and it doesn't cost you a whole lot of time. If you end up failing the transition warp a couple times, it may just be a little bit safer to just take this encounter. So in this case, I'll just showcase what that looks like. To make it a little bit easier, you can go into the safe house and just change your teleportation badge back to the demon badge. And then you're going to want to charge the flurry attack as you leave. And once you enter the fight here, we're just going to attack this guy. And then once that fight is done, you essentially get back, you get access to that exact area we did that transition warp to. So you can go back to the safe house and change out your badge back to the teleportation badge. What's important is if you're going into the safe house and trying to come in here to just change your badge, once you get to the screen transition, you'll want to just slightly hold down a little bit. So in my case, what I do is when I start to see the safe house is actually loaded, I press down on my D-pad twice. And the reason I do that is because when you land into the safe house, you land on the transition, and if you're trying to change your badges, just jumping doesn't let you go back and leave, nor does slight movement on the transition let you do it. But if you were to fall into the safe house and do a little bit of movement, so in my case, I will show that. So right now, notice how I land a little bit further down. Now I can equip my badge and then immediately hold up and leave the safe house. So now that I've done that, we're going to do another transition warp, but this one we don't have to worry about taking damage. We're going to throw the yo-yo here and just do a transition warp right there. And that lands us right here. What this does is it skips basically the entirety of the actual dungeon itself and skips having to go around and collecting some batteries and some keys and teleports us right into the VIP box where the boss is. So upon talking to Carrera, we will start the actual boss itself. And it plays very differently to any of the bosses in the game. We're now going to play a game of football. Here, we're going to make use of the teleportation badge, and we're going to walk forward. I'm going to get rid of this guy just to make it easier. Throw the yo-yo forward, grab the football, and then just after a couple seconds, you can count to 3, just teleport to it. And you're just going to be basically doing this constantly. We're going to grab the yo-yo, grab the football. We're going to throw the football so it gets out of our hands so we can safely throw the yo-yo. And we're just going to keep teleporting back and forth. For this first phase, the yo-yo can actually just teleport with the football can just carry through the yo-yo. But here in the second phase, they add these little barriers. These barriers will prevent the football from traveling through it. So this is where we'll need to make use of that, the ability to just throw the yo-yo, teleport. Get out of the way. For the second part, you're going to want to get to this lower area and do a teleport from here. Now this is one of the tricky parts because these chickens will troll you quite a bit, so it's really hard to just be consistent with this area. But you're always going to want to try and just get as far forward. For this third phase, you get these little turrets. These aren't of any problem to us. They actually deal more damage and are more annoying to his players than they are for us. But again, just stay in the lower path. In this case, I got my yo-yo knocked. From here, we'll just throw it in the middle, teleport, and there we go. And that's the whole encounter itself. This is one of the areas where it's very easy to lose a bunch of time, but also at the same time you can save a bunch of time just depending on how lucky you get. So we'll grab the mega battery. And now what we're going to do is we're going to take our next upgrade. Again, we get our other cousin because they are also tied to a cutscene for this mega battery, so we don't end up having to get them either. We're going to talk and get our next upgrade. This time we're going to go with the focus ring. Increases attack power of charged moves, but we lose 2 badge points. We're going to take this one, and it's actually going to unequip our badge because we no longer have the amount of BP to actually utilize it, but that doesn't matter. We're going to immediately leave. And then now we're going to just walk all the way to the exit. And because we zipped past this area, we're going to be forced into a little cutscene. You can just disregard that. And now we're going to go back to talk to this guy to collect our bet. And that'll immediately pay off our debt. So now that we have our debt paid off, we can immediately just leave and go into the safe house. Talk to get rid of the upgrade, and now pause and equip the cheater's train badge. Once we're out here, we're going to hold down here, and we're going to go to the bottom of the screen here, and we're going to do a zip with Pipit's nose on screen. Doing a zip from here lands us into this spot. We're going to go back to this screen. We're going to stand at the bottom again, this time also keeping his nose on screen. And that'll land us in this section. From here, we're going to go back one screen, and we're going to stand along these little lines here. You'll want to have Pipit's shadow be like level and parallel to these lines, and then again, zip with his nose on screen. This will drop us right into the skyscraper area, which skips having to go all the way around all the way around town and enter it from behind, which has a couple forced encounters. Doing it this way means we're just right outside the skyscraper and can go right in. From here, we need to collect a staff ID. Now, this is normally a little mini dungeon in of itself, but instead, we're going to skip the whole thing because the exit is actually just behind this little barrier. And with the train badge, we have enough speed where we can actually just make the jump around. So you can do it from this side or this side. So just jumping and then turning while in midair, and then you get across it. So once we do that, we just come up here, talk to this guy, get the ID, and now we're good. There are two different things you can do from here. Once you get the ID, you can stand in the middle of these boards and just walk the dog, and that'll get you straight to the exit. Another thing you can do is you can also zip from here, though it's a little bit slower to set up and do, but if you do a short zip, you can end up right here as well. So now that we have the staff ID, we can actually enter the dungeon proper. So we're going to go step on this switch. Now we're going to go down to this part of the street and just walk the dog from here. This just ensures that we don't get hit by any cars. We come down here, walk the dog again, and then jump after that cutscene. That way you can clear the gap. We're going to come up here, talk to this guy, and that way we can actually get into the dungeon itself. Now here we're going to skip basically this entire dungeon again. So what we're going to do here is take this lower part, we're going to jump over here, and then we're going to jump and wall right here. Now we're going to come to this part, and there are two different ways you can get past this or get to this next area. You can do a short zip where we're going to throw the yo-yo, take a couple steps back, and zip from here. And that way we end up right here. Another thing we can do is you can do a normal zip. So if we don't do a short zip, we end up one screen past. We want to wall right here, and then just go up to the screen. They're roughly about the same amount of duration, so it doesn't really matter which one you want to do. It's just depending on how you want to feel. It's a little bit faster slightly to do the normal zip because you don't have to take a couple steps back. So again, it just doesn't really matter. For this next zip, we need to stand in the middle of this doorway. So the best way to really do that is sort of line Pipit's shadow up just slightly to the right of these lines right here that I'm like standing on. So just slightly right of these shadows, and then go into the loading zone and zip from here. And that will take us right outside the boss room. So here we're going to go again into the safe house, and we're going to change to the demon badge. Now here is a deviation depending on how confident you feel in your gameplay and how much you want to push your run. So what you could do is you can go into the fight as it is right now with the demon badge equipped and do the fight like that. If you want a slightly faster fight and feel a little bit more confident, you go and you'll take an upgrade all the way over here called the focus bracelet, which increases the attack power of charged moves even further at the cost of -2 health. What this means is we will do more damage. So I'll actually demonstrate how much damage we're doing. So over here we get a little practice dummy. The charge attack, normally we're doing 8.2 per hit with the demon badge and all the upgrades we already have. If I go and I take the next upgrade for this one, now we're doing 9.5. It is a pretty substantial amount of damage more despite how little it sounds, but this does cap our HP at 1. So taking one hit will end everything. So again, it's just depending on how confident you feel. You can take this route where it is slightly faster to do a little bit more damage at the risk of only having 1 HP, but I'm not going to show that for here. We're just going to go into it with the normal demon badge. So we're going to come down here, jump past here. Once you get to this little spot right here from this wall, you can walk the dog, bounce off that, grab the bomb, walk the dog, and then just hold up. In this fight, we're going to immediately just keep holding the flurry attack and just keep hitting him with the flurry attack. Because of the upgrades we've taken so far, we do enough damage where we can essentially stun lock him if we can keep landing flurry attacks. And we will just keep entering his next phase and then his next phase without him actually being able to go anywhere. So I'll see if I can actually pull this off. So there we go, we completely skipped his first phase, and we just keep him in place here. Second phase is done, and then again we can just do the same thing here. And that's the whole fight. He essentially doesn't get the opportunity to do literally anything because of how much damage we're doing to him. And then we will collect our mega battery. Now that we have this mega battery, depending on what you did through that fight, if you took the upgrade, you will actually want to refund it. So you'll come back here, so I'll purchase it again so I can show. So if you did that fight with the upgrade, you will just come over here, choose ask for a refund, get refund, pause, change back to the train badge, and then leave. And then once here, you can actually just, like, as you're exiting the safe house, if you hold left and press the walk the dog as you land out here, you can immediately initiate the walk the dog onto this blue portal to get out. And we're just going to hold up to leave. Now from here, we're going to go over to this part, and we're going to do a zip from here. And again, this one doesn't matter if his nose is on screen or off screen. It's a little bit safer if it's on screen. We just end up right here. So now we can go down and go left. And then from here, we're going to do a slight setup. What you're going to do is you're going to walk Pipit onto against these little boards here. And that'll make sure you're on the correct line with these little lines on the actual ground itself. And then you're going to want to have do a zip with his nose off screen, which will land us right here. If you do that same zip with his nose on screen, let's see if I can get back here to show it. So if you do it with his nose on screen, what happens is you get put right here. And you just sort of void out. So it is, you want to make sure that his nose is off screen when you do this zip. And you'll end up right here. We'll grab this key, unlock this block, and then we can just move forward. Once here, we're just going to go down, and we're going to just walk the dog over here, and we're going to enter the next dungeon. So here is where we get the hardest trick, in my opinion, and that is we're going to do the third and final type of zip. So we're going to go over to this screen here. Up in this one, we're going to stand in this corner, and we're going to do what's called a pause zip. Now, normally, if I were to do a zip from here, I bonk on this wall. Even if I were to able to clear this wall, I would bonk on these little poles right here. So we need to do a pause zip. And what a pause zip is if you pause the game on the same frame you screen transition with a zip, the game will completely ignore all collision checks. So I'll see if I can get it reasonably, but it is a 1 frame to hit. So your options for it are you can just try and time it, or you can try and pause buffer it. So we'll see if I can get it. And it is a very difficult trick to get consistently. And there we go. So notice how the screen transitioned, but I'm in the pause menu. That means that I got the pause zip. So now if I were to unpause, I end up down here. And that completely skips all of the dungeon and brings us basically at the end of the dungeon itself. Once we're here, we're going to go up 1 screen. We're going to hug this right wall, and we're going to do a zip from here. And that'll skip this little puzzle room and get us down here. Once we're down into this screen, we completely skipped having to do this whole puzzle with the battery. And now what we're going to do is we're just going to come over here and wall ride from there and completely skip that area. So now what we're going to do is for this next room, we're going to enter a room where we're going to have to outrun like a little crusher thing. The best strat is to just wall ride through the whole thing, but there is the risk of taking damage. So we're guaranteed to take 1 HP of damage, but there is a risk of 2 HP of damage. But if we enter the room and try to grab the wall as fast as possible, we completely skip the second point of damage. And to do that, we need to be using the walk the dog into this next screen and immediately wall ride. So I'll show what that looks like. So you're going to walk the dog, then immediately go up here and just hold right. And just keep holding right. That's the mandatory one. And that's the other one we would take. So that second, that like B cop that was near me, if we were a little bit slower into grabbing the wall, he would have gone a little bit up enough to hit us when we're like sliding by. But if you walk dog into that room and then immediately grab the wall as soon as possible, you will only ever take 1 point of damage. So now we come down here and we can just wall ride here. And then once we pass this part, we can just walk the dog down here. So now that we're in here, we'll go to the safe house again and do the same thing as before. So we'll equip the demon badge. And now here, again, just like the previous boss, you can take the upgrade to do more damage at the cost of capping your health at 1. What is important to know is this point, it is considered like a point of no return for depending on what strat you want to use. if you go with the upgrade, you will retain the upgrade from here on out through the rest of the run. But if you don't want to do that upgrade route, you will just come in here, equip the demon badge, and then immediately leave. And I'll explain more about what I mean for like the point of no return for this when we get to it. So I'm just going to leave, and we're going to enter the Dawn fight. So for this first phase, you're going to want to wait for him to get into his position and start firing, and then attacking. For this one, he's going to shoot a little shotgun, and this is why we have the parry attack equipped. We can actually just hit his projectiles back at him and stun him. So what we're going to do is we're going to immediately just charge a flurry attack and just send his bubbles back at him. And that's what we want to do for this fight, is just stun him with his bullets and then just immediately go and catch him. For this third phase, he will use a little chain gun. What we're going to do instead, or what we're going to do, is we're going to get very close to him to wait for the very end of his little chain gun and reflect one of his final shots to stun him with that. So like that. And then depending on how lucky you are, you can intercept him right at this exact spot and hit him with a flurry attack. And that way you can stun him in place and hopefully finishing him off right then and there. And that's the whole Dawn fight, which gives us our fourth and final Mega Battery. Now from here on, depending, or it doesn't really matter what route you're in, you will not be making any changes. So I will not be equipping the train badge from here on out. I will be keeping the demon badge equipped. If you were doing the route where you took the upgrade, you would just leave with the upgrade still. So we'll leave here, and we need to leave the dungeon. So we take this switch. Now, here is where, depending on which route you took, you will change up what you're going to do. So because I did not take the upgrade, when I go through this elevator, I need to hold down on the D-pad. And that's going to prevent the game from throwing me into a wall and allow me to progress, because this area is normally supposed to be accessed, like we're supposed to get through here through an elevator, but because we didn't spawn the elevator, the game is just going to try and put me into water. If I hold down, it'll allow me to just void out through the water. So I'm going to show that here. So just holding down, I can walk into the water and it spits me out here. Now obviously if you're doing the other route where you took the upgrade, you don't have the health to take that. So what do you do instead? Well, if you're doing it with the upgrade, don't press anything, because what the game will do is the game will actually throw you into a wall instead. It'll actually throw you into a spot in the wall up in this top left corner here. So you'll be stuck in the wall like right here, and all you'll need to do to escape it is to just pause and go return to safe house. Because we've entered this screen, the active safe house is now this screen, so you'll end up right here anyway. So if you took the upgrade, don't press anything when you're doing that screen transition, and just return to safe house once you're in the wall. If you didn't take it, just hold down. So now we'll want to leave, and we're going to purchase this taxi spot and use it to go back to the very first one we activated at the start of the run. And now we're going to go all the way back up to Pipistrello Manor. So here, you can just do a normal zip where it doesn't really matter if his head is on screen or off screen. The closer you are to the screen transition is better, because you get a slightly longer zip that'll take you straight to the manor. So if you're closer to the screen transition and you do a zip, you will get this, where you'll end up here. That's the ideal one. The alternative is if you aren't just barely missing it, you will still end up on this screen. You'll just end up at the bottom of the screen. So you'll just end up right here. So it's not really a big deal, but it does save, obviously, time getting the zip where you're just up there. So now that we're in Pipistrello Manor, we're going to go up to the top here. And in this spot, we're going to hug the wall, and then with his nose off screen, we're going to do a zip here. And that'll bring us to this room, where we will hold up, and then take a zip from this wall. So right in this corner, we zip from here, and we end up in the final boss. So that skips the entirety of the final dungeon, and now we're in the actual first phase of the Madam fight. This first phase is very simple, and it only takes a couple flurry attacks, and you shouldn't be taking any damage, ideally. So I'm just going to show what it looks like. So if I grab the Yoyo, I'm going to flurry attack. I'm going to hit her with two full flurry attacks, hit her with a third one, meet her here, hit her with two more, and then as she moves, hit her with another one. And that's the first phase done. It should always take that same amount of flurry attacks each time, so it's not really too big of a deal. So now we're in the actual like big part of the fight. So here, we'll want to always just keep hitting her with flurry attacks and just avoid the mega batteries. And then for each of these challenge rooms, there really isn't any faster way for most of these other than just doing them the intended way. There are a couple that are slightly faster based on using a different technique that we have, a different little trick. But for the most part, the fastest way is to just do these the intended way and then just come back and hit her with more flurry attacks. Once we get here, we're going to do it in a clockwise position. So what I ended up forgetting to do is you can actually replace the parry with Around the World after you defeat Dawn, and that will allow you to use Around the World to hit these batteries from the outside instead of having to go into the inner parts to hit them. So in this case, I have to go to these inner areas to be able to hit the batteries. If you would change to Around the World, you can just hit them from the outside and not have to worry. So you'll just come around and hit each of the batteries, and then you'll go and into the middle to continue hitting her. Again, we will just continue the same tactic. If she does this, where she uses the batteries as a block, you will just ricochet them off the yo-yo off the wall to get past her. Now that we're here, we're going to do the same counterclockwise position. You hit the mega battery, come over here, hit this one. For here, I like to jump off this spot because this guy right here likes to be really annoying. Jump off right here, and then hit the final one. And the reason we do this one is because with these enemies that are just drill, like these little drill guys who just hit me, those enemies always spawn in that corner and are the easiest to dodge out of all of the enemies and the least chaotic to deal with. So doing it in that clockwise position just makes it easier to dodge any attack as they're coming to you. Disregard the fact that I did get hit because I was talking. So now we go in and we just continue. So now that we've gotten to this point, she will start incorporating new attacks. This is the one we want to see a lot. So she turned the batteries into a sword, and she's very vulnerable as she does this attack. So we want to just keep hitting her with the flurry attacks. And there we go. And now all it is you are just going to use the offstring throw to hit the mega batteries into the void. There is a slightly faster thing you can do, because this, as we're doing this, we need to wait for the yo-yo to return to us before we can hit the next battery. There is a strategy which I can't show off right now because I only have 1 HP, but there is a way for you to jump at these little corner spots and hit the yo-yo so it hits the mega battery, and then you can jump back to the main area. And the reason this works is because of our jump reset trick, where we can actually, when the yo-yo comes into contact with a wall or an enemy, we can actually jump out of the yo-yo attack even though we're in the air. I have a video on the jump resets as well as this method, so I will link those in the description as well if you're interested in learning more about those. But once the final mega battery has been hit, then you get two options. You can just hit Madam to end it, or you can just walk up to her. It is faster to just hit her, so just mashing the attack button, and timing ends when she's hit. And that's the category, that's the run. Doing it with the upgrade, so I mentioned the point of no return is when you take the upgrade for the Dawn fight, you will not be changing anything. You will go into the Madam fight with that 1 HP and doing more damage. It is faster to do it that way. You deal more damage to her, so you end a lot of her phases quicker, but you have the risk of only having 1 HP. So depending on how confident you are in your play, it is faster to take that upgrade and do the whole fight with 1 HP. But if you aren't confident in it, it is just easier to stick to the demon badge. If you aren't even confident doing the demon badge, there is a badge that just increases your attack by 1, which is more beneficial than having nothing. So it is faster, it is the fastest to have that upgrade to do more charge damage and deal with only having 1 HP. It is a little bit slower than that to just keep the demon badge, and it's even slower than that to not have the demon badge and just have, I think it's called the fist badge, to just do more damage. But that is any percent New Game Plus, no restrictions, our core category, and anything else that I have, other extra information and tricks and stuff will be linked in the description, as well as our speedrun.com page if you're interested in submitting runs, as well as our Discord if you want to talk a little bit more. So thank you for watching,